criminal-minded. You've been blinded, looking for a style like mine. You can't.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Within rock, I've always thought of it as different waves. And what I mean is, so the first waves was like a big wave of dynasty rockers and Bushwick and that kind of wave with Mr. Lou's Burn, King Uprock, and Charlie Uprock was one of the guys who really brought back the dance too. And these guys came in and started rocking at b-boy events in New York. And that was
what year was that? Like,
that's 97, 98, 99. There's a classic video of Rocksteady versus like where it's like Doze, Ken Swift, and they're battling King Uprock, Charlie Uprock, and a Rocksteady cipher. So because the Brooklyn guys were trying to say, no, we're here. This is a full dance. This is what we do. And so that started coming back, and people started being aware, oh, rock's its own dance. It's not just part of breaking. It's its own thing, and it existed. And then, you know, the next starting to be the wave was Seven Gyms came in, and Seven Gyms got real popular, and they did a big movement, and they pushed it. And then we kind of kept going in our West Coast wave and pushed it. And then Mastermind Rockers came around, and Mastermind started traveling internationally. And at that same time, Dynasty started becoming an international crew as well, with FT going back to Russia and just blowing it up, like just amazing. I would never have thought in 2010 what FT has done. It's crazy. You know, there's just rock is a national pastime in Russia. And so that wave went out, and then the Mastermind wave goes out, and eventually, you know, BBD is the current wave. That's going real big, where their style is taking off, and Vix, Cooks, Popo, Love, and these guys are really pushing their format and their style and their, you know, and of the dance. If I came up to you on the street and I said, "Oh, hey, I dance hip hop," what would that mean to you?
It could mean all sorts of stuff.
Right. So I think also rock was the pop music of the time. So if you said you dance rock, it's like an umbrella term. And there's the rock was done in different boroughs differently, and and within different boroughs. Because even within New York, it was done way different at different times. So, you know, maybe in 71, Bushwick wasn't the same as Coney Island 81, 82. You know, that's 12 years later. 10 years later, it's a whole decade. And so the dance is going to change and evolve, and the music changes and evolves with it. I learned quickly that you don't mention other rockers talking to an OG rocker. So, for instance, if I said, you know, with one OG number one, and I say, well, OG number 3 told me this, and it's different from what you said. Fuck that guy. That guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He doesn't know shit. I burned him. I burned that fool. I burned him. He don't listen to him. He's an idiot. That's what they, you know, so I really had to learn, like, okay, I got to like insulate my conversations, and I can't say, well, that's not correct because they told me this. And even when you're learning, like rock, one thing I learned real fast was there's no common terminology in rock. There's no 6-step. There's no, you know, universal terminology. Each crew has a different language and a way that and moves that they teach. You know, and each, you know, so for example, when I first started dancing, I learned from Breakeasy, and I learned the side jerk. And he steps out to the side, and then he does a jerk. And then when I met Noel from Touch a Rock, he said, "Show me your side jerk." And I showed it the way Breakeasy showed me with, and he goes, "That's not a side jerk. This is a side jerk," and shows me something totally different.
Oh shit!
So I had to realize, okay, there's no common terminology between crews, between boroughs, and, you know, much less between, you know, neighborhoods, barrios. It's all different, and that's the thing I had to catch on to. The Bronx Rockers came, you know, with Willie Estrada, Enoch, Papo Frank Rojas. And that happened probably around 2010. And so that was a different aspect to rock, which was really interesting because I liked their style and what they were doing. But before that, I had not seen Bronx Rockers, like before that were not B-boy. You know, these guys.
The hustling side of it. The hustlers.
They had within rock is freestyle rock as a part of rock was freestyle
Yeah.
steps and freestyle dancing. And you know, to understand that you kind of have to you know, really get a sense of what it is by it has like a certain je ne sais quoi, and there's a certain set of movements, and a lot of it, what it is a lot of Latin based steps, a lot of funk based steps. So because a lot of these guys had new salsa and hustle and other different steps that watched their parents do salsa, and they applied those steps to funk music. And so that kind of changed the feeling of them, and kind of that, you know, and also added in a lot of like James Brown and a lot of steps from funk. And that's kind of freestyle rock within the dance of rock between jerks, burns, and freestyle, freezes, and some other floor work or some other aspects of the dance. And these guys came back and they had amazing freestyle. And you know, their dancing was funky, it was cool, soulful, but it was different and it was a different narrative. And so it took within all that there was a lot of political beefing. And the Bronx rockers would dance, and when they would dance against each other, they dance one at a time. So you would like breakdance. So you go, I go, you go, I go. And so to me,
was it more like almost like a showcase style in a way, instead of a confrontational face-to-face style.
And that alone separates it as a dance from the Brooklyn Bushwick style of rock. To me, because when you're dancing against someone at the exact same time, that's a whole different energy.
Yeah.
That's a whole different level of awareness. And you're attacking, you got to do blocks, you got to do burns, and you never know what your opponent's going to do. And that, to me, was the magical thing about rock, is when you have those interactions and something amazing happens. For instance, one guy pulls out a sword and goes and swings it down the other guy. And the other guy does like the old martial art movies and catches the sword above his head. And everybody gets that little moment of the burn, and it's just like an energy's released in the crowd, like, oh, you know, like, and everybody knows that it took those two people to create the synergy in that moment, and then that energy was boom, like an explosion in the crowd, and everybody was like, that was a unique moment. And I think that's one of the things I really like about rock, is that it gives you that room to you against the person you're dancing, and it's you guys are exchanging energy. And so to me, as those guys from New York, the Bronx came out, I appreciated what they're doing, and I thought it was cool, and I thought, oh, I'd like to add that to my repertoire of moves, into my arsenal. But at the same time, I was like, you know, the way that they do it and how it's done, and they don't jerk on the break, and it seems like a different dance to me. And so I kind of explained the dance as a spectrum. And I used the 3 papos.
I was going to bring into that. I was going to say that because I remember you mentioned that.
I used the 3 papos of rock. Okay, so we have 3 papos. We got on one end of the spectrum, Papo Frank Rojas from the Bronx, freestyle-based dancing. On the other end of the spectrum, the dance, when it originally started, this was like, you know, a lot of this came from the gangs. All because they you know, they would be burning each other. All street dances have burns. All street dances, locking, popping, every street dance you could think of has a burn to it, because if you're battling someone, you're going to burn them.
Yeah.
And so what you would have was these guys that we, you know, different crews and gangs that would hang out in the street corners, you know, getting drunk, high, listening to music, goofing on each other. You know, so they're burning each other, and they do some simple James Brown shuffles, and they burn. And you know, I saw this when I learned from Apache, and I said, okay, that's one aspect of the dance, and that's, you know, on this end of the spectrum. Now in the middle, I see it as this.
That's the Papo Love, right? So that end is Papo Love.
Papo Love.
That's Fran Rojas.
More of the gang style of dancing, more of the or what was called back in the day burning. They wouldn't call it rock all the time. It was just called burning. They were burners. They burned. And then I think in the middle is like the Bushwick style, where you have jerks, freestyle, and burns, and you have to be good at all of them. And that's what the dance I like, because I feel like it has the most elements that I can sink my teeth into. Maybe there's just the exposure to the culture as a whole. You know, you're not, and it's not the most dynamic thing. So as a b-boy, you're seeing some rockers, and you're like, well, they're not doing head spins, and head spins are always better than just dancing, because that's that b-boy mentality of what levels things up. And so, but eventually, a lot of b-boys coming into rock, and we start, there's starting to be more and more contests in this as the rock 2014, 15, 16. And how I see the dance in a sense, and like I said, within that spectrum, there was 15 years of the dance developing and dying and going bigger in some areas, getting less. I don't think there's one way to rock. Like, I don't see it like in that way, which is interesting, because as we come into the new era, rock was not simply about contests back in the day. It was more about, there's just, battling on Apache lines in Linden Park and in St. Barbara's and these different, in hooky parties and different clubhouses. That was where most of the rock was just done in the streets for fun. And it was done for the crowd, for the moment, to get the, your respect from everybody. And so now we're moving into this era, maybe because we're all former b-boys. And where did b-boying, where did breaking go? Even from my era in the late 90s, there was not a lot of contests. There was a lot of events where you go and break, but there wasn't a lot of contests. Then contests started coming. And now, we're in the Olympics. And so maybe we're following that path, and I don't know if it's the best thing for the dance. That's the focus of our culture. I think it should be an aspect of it, and it will be an aspect of it. I don't have any illusions, but I think we should at least have the discussion. Do we want to go this way? Because like I said, there's a spectrum of rock. If you get the three papos of rock to judge a contest, they're all going to look for completely different aspects of the dance, and they're all going to judge completely different.
Yep.
So in a sense, we don't even have a agreement on what rock is as a whole. And now we're having a contest where and rock's hard to judge because you have two people dancing at the same time. And so how do you focus on two people simultaneously dancing? It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
It will have some points of contact and moments that can define a battle that will happen. But really, to me, the most important thing about rock is to be a good dancer. And you could burn the person with your dance, and not only that, have a variety. I always say variety. It's the most important thing, because if you got one rocker who's just doing a simple shuffle back and forth, a two-step, and then they just do a simple hit burns. I call them like tit for tat burns, where you're just punching, kicking, and throwing dick. And then he has one jerk step. Everybody does that lunge jerk where they 1 foot behind the other, they jump back, like the Z step jerk. Everybody, everybody's doing the same jerk. This guy's doing the same jerk, same burns, not a different. And then you have another guy who's doing a lot of freestyle steps, doing a lot of different jerk variations, doing spins, doing freezes, and utilizing the music for everything. Doing burns, and not just burns like tit for tat burns, also storytelling. And because storytelling is so important, because as an artist, I'm communicating with my dance to this music. I'm expressing, what are we expressing as an artist? And I'm going to tell a story. So if I do a story, and for instance, I do a burn on you, or I grab your head, I cut it off, I hold it up, I poke out your eyes. This is one of my signature burns. Then I bowl it, boom, and then I strike like the Al Bundy strike. Yes, And everybody who's watching me, I do this all on beat, and they see that there's a spark in I just sent a secret message to everybody, and they understood what I did. I mined out this burn. I did it to the music, and there's a spark in their brain. And guess the audience is going to start to watch my burns, because they're going to say, I wonder what story he's going to tell next. There's some other guy who's just stabbing me 20 times. I've been stabbed 20 times. I get it. I've been shot with a gun. That's cool, and it works, and I do this too. But it's at some point, I think, what's the next level? Oh, we got to tell stories. Sometimes I call it leading a battle. Have you ever seen one guy start burning the other guy, and the other guy starts playing into the other guy's burns? Like where he'll pull out a gun and shoot the guy, and the guy will pretend to get shot. That means the guy who's initiating this is leading, like as if it was a couples dance, because the other guy is so paying attention to his opponent and his stories, he's getting lost in his other guy, and so you could see who's running the show in the battle. So again, we have these contests that are being held today, and after every contest, there's always beefs. There's always, I should have won. This judge doesn't know what they're doing. Half the judges aren't even paying attention the whole time. This judge is biased. We have a lot of times where you enter a contest and your crew, the crewmates are in the contest. So there's all these disparities within judging, and what we have is we have no consistency within judging systems. And the craziest thing to me is you can't expect consistent judging from inconsistent judging systems. So what does that mean? If we're going to go down this path, we have to standardize the dance. And I don't want to standardize the dance. That's not my interest. That's not what I like. I don't want the dance to be, oh, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. But if we're going to have contests, if you want to manipulate and like, okay, I got Papo Love, he's judging me. Okay, I'm going to do burn. I'm going to burn. I'm going to do those stuff. I'm going to, you can change your style to win a contest based on who is the judge. You got, if you got someone like Papa 774, I got to hit my jerks. I got to hit my freestyle. You want to accentuate those things for him? Fine. That's for you to decide. But for me, that's kind of waters down the essence of how I'd want to dance. I want to dance for myself. Saying, and I mean, there's other options. There's other ways to showcase rockers. For instance, like boxing matches. You get two good guys that everybody respects. You get a Rob Nasty and a Worry. Everybody would want to see those two battle. Fly them out. Pay them good money to have them dance two songs.
Let them do their thing.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, you probably get a better showcase that looks cooler than a whole long contest of rocking, because rocking is a lot different than breaking. The contests are a lot longer. They're you're dancing whole songs, and the stamina it takes to do that. And then when you get a tiebreaker in a rock contest, and then
my God,
it's crazy. And I'm like, dude, like, you get two tiebreakers and you're in a contest, which happens, and then that person has to dance two more songs potentially than their final opponent. It doesn't make it. It's not fair. So I see the dance. I see the frustration with everybody and contests. And I think on the promoter end, the promoters are not giving the judges like, hey, this is my event. I want it to be judged like this. I want you guys to do this, this, and this. I want you to look for these things. So I think there needs to be some more vision from the promoters and from the people who are throwing the jams, and they communicate that to the judges, and then those expectations are followed through by the judge. This phrase came out, burn or get burned.
Yeah.
And that was really popular. But I always felt that the phrase should be burn and get burned, because you're always going to get burned. And as a B-boy coming to rock, B-boys hate getting burned. And that is like, usually it's really a hard thing for B-boys to get burned. I never get burned. That's, and I've seen a lot of B-boys who transition to rock, and guess what happens? They get burned. It's just part of it. You can't be a rocker without taking your licks, without getting on that line, without getting burned. So it's a part of the dance. And so when I dance in an Apache line, sometimes I'm just having fun. I'm just being silly. I'm not trying to always, usually if it's an opponent that's really good and someone I respect and I know they put in a lot of work, boom, I'll try to make it. I'm gonna reciprocate that respect, and I know we're gonna have a good battle. And I really get into more of my arsenal of moves, and I try to really put on a show. But sometimes I'm not in the mood, and it's just an Apache line. We're just that's what it's for, is to have fun. But in a contest, I think a lot of people already are changing the way that they dance, and slightly than they would from a circle or they would from an Apache line. So, and think about, well, if we're just going to have guys just do this and this, it's never going to get better. It's always going to lead to bad results. And chances are, because the dance is so nuanced and so opinionated in how you're doing it, it's going to be really hard to ever be fair. Like in breaking, you go out and if you do 3 1990s and I go and do 5, who wins that round? Well, this guy did 5 head spins. I'm going to do 10. I win. So in rock, it's so nuanced. It's such a less dynamic dance in that manner that it's really hard to judge. And so if we're going to keep, and what happens after every one of these contests is everybody's complaining about the judging, and they're complaining about the dance and the biasness and the politics every time because they lost or their friend lost, and it makes the dance look disorganized, and it makes the dance look bad. And so and I figure, well, instead of just complaining, let's like, where are we going with it? Like, let's think of some options. Let's think get a couple. Everybody come to the table, not just me. I don't know. And like I said, I'm not a fan of contests, but joining myself. So I'm not like, I don't have money on the table for this, but I do like to think about it because I'm concerned about the whole culture as overall. And if the whole culture is going to be based on all these contests, and after every contest, everybody's going to say they were robbed, it's the culture is going to stagnate and not going to grow, and people are just going to get more political and more biased, and like stopping supporting each other's contest, because that's kind of what I could imagine it leading to, where, oh, Group A always throws these contests and they only let these kind of rockers win, and Group B, they only do these contests, that's the only ones I'm going to do, and the community can fragment and it won't be on the same page. And like I said, the dance is on a spectrum. I appreciate all the aspects. I love the different styles. I think everybody has an art that they're bringing to the table, and there's something for everyone. And there's enough where you don't have to disparage everybody. You don't have to cut the heads off of others to make yourself feel taller. And I see that happening a lot, where people are always putting down other people to make themselves feel better. And it's not necessary. We just need to think about it collectively a little bit more, to start thinking about where we're going with purpose, like, with intention. What's our intentions for this dance? How do we want to see it moving forward? And especially as this next generation starting to take hold of the dance, because it's the baton is being passed and somewhat pried away in certain aspects and certain people, and so now, as my generation, especially where I was from, I watched a lot of these guys be for years and years and years, and I saw it turned off a lot of rockers. I knew so many rockers from New York that had so much potential, but because they lived in New York and were always exposed to the beefs, they quit. And I got that from them a lot, where they would get jealous because we would come, or other people would come from out of town, and the OGs would give the guys from Poland all their attention, or the guys from England, or the guys from Sweden all their attention, where the guys from New York wouldn't even get half the attention, and they would get like frustrated and upset about this. And so I saw a lot of this throughout the years, and people be turned off from the dance, and I got burned out on all of it as well. And and now, though, as we are moving forward and our generation starting to throw more events and throw more contests and judge more, I just would love to see more intention behind what we're doing, and more discussion.